It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 do.
Welcome
Good
to the Spirit
morning.
Cafe Show.
And I said good morning, and I mean good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're coming. You are welcome here, and we are so happy that you are here with us today. My name is Cheryl Rogers, and I'm here with
Barbara Jean, and our third host, Marg, is away today, but she'll be back next week. Well, Cheryl's going to give us our land acknowledgement.
Yes, I am. And so we come to you from Ontario, Canada, and we like to acknowledge that we work, live, and play on the historical and traditional territory of many First Nations. And as we gather on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. This includes the Métis, Inuit, and all other Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge that as we continue to grow and expand on these lands, there is still unresolved and dangerous inequality and discrimination towards BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ plus family. By making these acknowledgements, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Well, our guest today is a high flyer, but that's not what we're talking about today. Erikka is a person who is driven by her fascination with experiencing life and learning. This drive has taken her to 29 countries, including her most recent home in Barcelona, Spain. It has also taken her through some profoundly different types of work, including owner-operator of a restaurant, a registered nurse, an international independent circus performer. I've seen her perform, and most recently has driven her to return to academia to study clinical psychology. Erikka believes that self-awareness and our connection to self, others, and our environment is at the heart of an exciting and satisfying life. And today we are going to be talking about anxiety over dying and what Erikka learned through her process. Welcome, Erikka.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. Thrilled to have you. Now, you're not flying on any ribbons right now, but let's talk a little bit about the anxiety around dying, because I know a lot of people have it.
It's so funny. Like, I was listening to you say that, and I thought, you know, I might be one of the only people that's like, yes, let's talk about this. Because normally people are like, oh, I'm good. You're good. Okay, thanks. Great. And so but I see it as really like not as heavy, or not heavy in the way that maybe society sees it. And I think I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story about where that comes from for me. So when I was a teenager, my mom passed suddenly. And at that time, I was really confused by it, to be honest. I mean, she was pretty healthy, and I wasn't really expecting that in any way. But I had no idea that I was experiencing like this anxious pull of what was going on because I was grieving, right? And so I couldn't really separate what was happening. It took me decades to really get a handle on what was going on for me. But I just knew that I really wanted my life to feel meaningful to me, and that I wanted to really figure out what I was supposed to be doing. And that for me was really weird because I like so many different things that I was like, oh, wow, maybe I don't have a destiny. Maybe I don't have a thing I'm supposed to do. But it brought me first to, before working, to wanting to really experience every type of physical activity, every type of adrenaline, every type of thing, because I really, really wanted to live. And I spent years snowboarding before circus and doing that kind of thing. But it eventually brought me to the cancer clinic where I worked for over a decade with people who, like my mom, were on the side of having less time than they thought they were going to have, right? And we're in the place of really starting to figure what that meant for them. And what I saw over and over were people who were in some of the hardest moments of their life starting to come alive and starting to connect and starting to see this beauty and simplicity, right? That I think is at the heart of having a lot of respect for this beautiful earth that we're born on, right? And so I started to feel this pull within myself of, what else is there? What else do I want? How do I bring this opportunity that I have to experience the world and give something that has value to other people while also feeling really nourished? And that eventually led me back to the arts, which was my first love before medicine, but with a different kind of vigor. It was the idea of, okay, death gives us this frame, and it frames this experience that we have as finite. And the knowledge that it's not going to go on forever is the thing that makes it sweet. It's the thing that gives us this opportunity to love everything and experience everything and feel alive. And so that kind of took this fear of dying away from me and gave me this idea that I just wanted to make art, and something that I have had the opportunity to do, that I've had the opportunity to connect with you about, is I really believe we need more wonder in the world. And so I think that's a piece of my personal part. But it came to me from this kind of heaviness. And I don't know that we always talk about the gifts that come out of our heaviness, you know?
I don't think we do, but I'll tell you, that's where most of our gifts do come from. Those
Yeah.
moments that we would call bad or hard or difficult is some of the moments that move us in a direction that are most pivotal in our success moving forward.
Yeah. And something that's come up while you were talking for me, Erikka, which I just thought, you've overcome the anxiety of living, right?
I mean, I think,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about even people when they know that their end is near, they suddenly realize that they haven't been living. And I think, and I'm going to include myself in that. There's no them and us. When we know that we are almost at the end, it's like, oh wow, what am I doing? What have I been doing? What do I want to do? And suddenly, and the reality is that we're all dying. I mean, that's a given, right? And yet it has to take something like that for us to really get it.
Yeah, I really feel that. Actually, I have something that I was thinking about from what you were saying was have you ever heard of the paradox of choice? It's
Don't think so.
it's a theory that came out by Dr. Schwartz in 2005, in which he talked a little bit about how the human brain is more efficient when we have less choices. And when we have a lot of choices, sometimes we get frozen. And the thing about life is that, yes, we have organization and society, but we are profoundly groundless. Many of us can do lots of things, right? And yes, of course, there are systems of oppression and things like that in multicultural senses that do stand in the way of everybody always having the opportunity to do what they want. But we do have a large amount of choice within the reality that we're given. And sometimes I think that paralyzes people. I know that was my experience a little bit. Thinking I can do anything made me feel like, what if I choose the wrong thing? Maybe I won't. And I wonder how many times that's a factor in the lives of like ordinary people, right? I mean, I think I feel like I'm a pretty ordinary person. And I feel like there's freedom in that. If you're very ordinary and you don't have to make a big fancy life, then you have the freedom to really learn and do what you want, and you have more freedom than people who are very rigidly successful or pursuing that kind of fame and that sort of thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
I like having choices, but sometimes there can be too many. I remember the first time I went shopping with my husband before we were married. And as he spent 10 minutes in the floss aisle, I left to go do other things because I think that was when I decided not to shop with him.
Yes, right?
Too many choices.
Well, and that's interesting. I just looked him up, Barry Schwartz, and it actually, I had a personal experience when we immigrated to Canada from South Africa in 2000. I remember going to a Canadian Tire, and I wanted to buy a broom, and there were too many choices. And I didn't know what brand, because this is all new to me. If I go in South Africa to the store, I know exactly what the different brands are, which ones are better quality, et cetera, et cetera. And there I was looking at all these brooms, and I actually cried because I just didn't know which one to choose. So that makes perfect sense to me, that when we have too many choices, especially when it's out of our comfort zone, how difficult that can be, even for the simplest thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that leads a lot of people to sometimes make choices that feel like they are supported by society, or the safe choice or the right choice. And those choices are not always in line with their personality and their gifts and the things that they can really shine in, right? They're the things that feel the most protected. And so I think
that they're expected to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And people get really, we talked on the last show a little bit about how sometimes people get a bit aggressive when you're not following the template. Sometimes they feel a little bit like, must be nice to be out there winging around at 40. And you're like, yeah, it kind of is nice. I'm really happy I did that. It feels good to me. But what I hear sometimes in those is this idea of, I wish I had chosen differently and I didn't feel like I could.
Yeah.
There's so many of us that are living from the shoulds of other people. Like our parents, our teachers, our siblings, neighbors, whoever have said, here's how you should behave, here's what you should want, here's how you should act, here's what should be important to you. And then we try to live in that, which has nothing to do with what it is we brought to planet Earth to express in this lifetime, whatever our
To
unique
experience.
and to experience, right?
Yes.
We're walking on eggshells trying to keep everybody else happy, and we're miserable.
Yes.
And then we lose ourselves, right? And then we
Yeah.
have to try and find ourselves. And so we get on this spiritual journey of unlearning and undoing and looking for who we really are.
But the thing is, we do it after we've spent decades doing another thing. And for
Yeah.
me, I just think, oof, what heaviness is that? Because there's sometimes this idea, maybe, Regine, when you were talking about just how we get away from our gifts. I have this thing that I say, I kind of imagine us as having a bit of an assignment, and not that like we get an assignment that's very specific from a deity or any specific thing that we have to do, but I feel like it's more organic in the sense of like, we have this unique set of personality and talent and interest and access and geographical location, and all that stuff comes together and it forms this potential for what we can give. And I believe human beings crave connection, meaning, and purpose. So I believe that we take those things and we put them together and we say, how can we have a meaningful life to us, give something to other people, and feel like it's purposeful in some way? That's what feels true to me. And I think a lot of people don't. I think we feel the most alive when we're doing our assignment.
I agree. Yeah, I know so often, I'll talk to people about, what is your purpose? And I often hear people go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Biggest lie that we tell ourselves.
But I
Because
think,
ultimately we do know, but we've forgotten because of the outside pressure.
yes. Or we haven't given ourselves the confidence to say, it's okay for me to go and discover who I am, and then come back to this society whole, instead of saying, I'll exist in this society and I'll get whole when I have time later, when I retire.
Yeah, very true.
I'll do life later when I'm on the other side of the grass.
But you know what? I heard that so many times in the cancer clinic. People would come in and they would say, like, they would have cancer after retiring, like 6 months, and they would say, but I just retired. They'd waited my whole life for this and I just got it. And there's nothing worse than seeing someone who really believed they had time. Because we don't control that, right? And nobody wants to be in that situation, and nobody wants to sit on the other side of that. We want to see people die really well, and the reality is some people die really well, and I've seen it.
Yes. Yeah. I think it rates right up there with living. I remember my ex-husband died a couple years ago at the age of 62 and had retired 1 year earlier, was healthy, strong, going out golfing with our son, and they were supposed to go golfing. He had a headache and said, I can't come today, and ended up in the hospital and ended up being a quadriplegic within 24 hours. And in 3 weeks decided to unplug using MAID because there was no way, like he couldn't even breathe on his own. So it's like, why would I want to live like this? What was fascinating, though, is, that was completely unexpected for him. But at the end there, he was so loving and so kind to every single person that he dealt with. People would come into his room and he was in a lot of pain, and they would be moving him around and, giving him needles or taking blood or doing whatever they were doing. And every single person, when they left the room, he'd say, thank you. I love you. And it was
Right.
just such a beautiful thing to see what he had come to, even
Mm-hmm.
though what he was going through felt a little
Yeah.
unfair, which I think
Yeah.
most people would agree. You know, you just
Yeah.
retire, you're healthy, and all of a sudden you have this weird, obscure thing. He had a cavernoma at the top of the right where the skull hits the spinal column, and this abnormal group of blood vessels burst,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that was that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Wow.
crazy. Though. And
Yeah.
but I think it's also like what you're describing, you really get this core sweetness of a human when we take away this layer of conditioning that people feel they have to, all this other stuff. And there's this real core inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. And why do we have to go through something to get there, right? Go through, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like so many of us take life for granted, right? We
Mhm.
really do take life for granted. And then something like that happens, and suddenly you realize what's important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like things that are important before the realization are really not important.
It's a really interesting thing to me too, coming from North American society into Spanish society, which is not that different and not that the same at the same time. But
Yeah.
it's like there's this big focus on the schedule in North America. Oh, the schedule. You can't get in the way of the schedule. We have a
Mhm.
schedule. We don't know why we have the schedule. We just have to work and make money because we need things. And it's like, and here we have almost the entire month of April on holiday for Easter.
Mhm.
They call it Semana Santa here, but they and you'll hear the people here say, "Oof, we should work more," right? But there's this thing in my mind where I think in between the two, there's the truth, right? We
Mhm.
don't want to be like empty and focused on just finding pleasure all the time. That doesn't satisfy us. It doesn't give us
Mhm.
meaning. But we also don't want to be so busy. Busyness is a decision that we don't have time to think and discover ourselves and to really look at our choices in our lives and say, like, is this who I am? Is this what I want to do with this time
Mhm.
that I have? It's very quite short,
Mhm.
as evidenced by all of the people I know. And I think to speak to your point, Cheryl, like I think that's why programs like this really matter because it's actually a lot of people I think never really think to have those conversations.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're just like, death is something we don't talk about.
Mhm.
Yeah, almost
And
like
yet,
if we don't talk about it, it won't happen.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's guaranteed.
sure. Yeah, exactly. You're like, pardon? There's literally never been like a bigger likelihood that something's coming your way
Mhm.
eventually.
Yeah, and we don't know when it is or how it is or whatever, and it's coming.
Mhm.
And what could we do to really sort of, I don't know, create longevity or at least joy in the process is to live from our authentic self.
Yes.
Yes.
Those gifts that we came in with, to share those, whatever that looks like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of people sometimes think like, well, I'll be really successful and people will remember me forever. I hear a lot of artists say, I'll make a piece that people will remember forever. And there's this idea of specialness or uniqueness or this legacy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that too is a distraction, right? There's a
Mhm.
piece wanting to share financial resources or whatever with
Mhm.
somebody you're related to, sure. But I think a lot of times when we think about this, and I think a lot about it towards social media content, is this idea of I'm so focused on the creation of this wealth, fame, whatever, I'm focused on, and it distracts me, or it's able to distract me so I don't have to think about this impending thing.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. That's, you know, the ideas of distractions. I think that's one of the big things that keeps us from really engaging in life. And then there's our boredom.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got our phones and we've got our iPads and we've got our laptops and we've got our TVs, and we spend a whole lot of time in front of these things doing nothing.
I always, yeah, I always think of, if some, I don't know, something came from outer space and if they, flew over our houses and they could see into our living rooms or if our bedrooms or wherever, you would just see like zombies, just
Yes.
tuned in, right? Or on here, like zombies, really.
Have you ever seen, there's an artist that's done a photo series and it's amazing. And it's like all people on their phones. And then he takes the phone out of the photo and you see like people sitting on the couch, sitting away from each other. Just the natural body language is so closed and away from connection and being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it disconnects us, absolutely. And what it does is it takes our focus away from who we are, who we're being, just even feeling what we're being. It does distract us, like completely, cuts us off. I think that's the word. It really cuts us off from ourselves and from each other.
100%. I could not agree more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're desensitized.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not paying attention. And I mean, our society really sets that up, right? I mean, I think society is a reflection of our own requests. We prefer not to be uncomfortable. We spend a lot of time in North America trying not to be comfortable, in ways that I've discovered more and more as I go. And I think there's some discomfort necessary in order to be awake.
Mm-hmm.
I agree completely. I
Yeah.
agree. There is great success that comes out of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Well, sorry, Erikka, you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, I was just laughing because I was sitting with another artist 2 days ago, and I was feeling frustrated about something that was happening. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm just going to feel it." And she was like, "Love that you do that." I said, "I don't know. I just like, it's my discomfort. We turn everything into art. So I might as well just enjoy the feeling. And I mean, then it'll go and I'll feel the new thing." But
Beautiful.
we can't, I hate to say like discomfort is bad and happiness is good, because I mean, happiness is a nightmare too. Everything is good and bad in different ways, right? And we need each thing. I think of them like emotions are a bit like flavors, right? I mean, we want to feel lots of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to include it all because that's who we are, right? And we all have our shadow selves, we have our light selves, and we are whole and complete and connected with each other in a way that makes everything one at the end of the day, right? The oneness.
Well, we're at the halfway point here, so I'm just going to interrupt quickly. We're going to come right back to this. You're watching Spirit Cafe show here on the New Thought Media Network, and we'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought, Philadelphia. Planned Happiness Institute. Summit Center for Spiritual Living. One Heart Retreats. Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake. Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener. Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa. Satya Center. Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey. Unity of Savannah. And Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle. As well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So I had a thought before we had a break. Sorry, Barbara, because I've heard we were talking about discomfort, and I've heard ministers say, "I'm here to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable."
Okay, hold on. Let me think about that for a second. Afflict the. Yes. Okay, go on.
Right. So and so that speaks to basically growing in our discomfort. And how important that is for us. Because if we don't have those discomforts, if we don't have those, what we call bad experiences or challenging times in our lives, we become complacent and we learn nothing, right? Why would we? What would we need to do if we're just comfortable?
The human brain is really efficient. Okay. It gets really comfortable fast. And when I think about your story with the broom, I've had that experience. Okay. I've gone to the supermarket and just been like, I just need oats in a package. I understand. And but the truth is, I mean, it's true, but I really think that, you know, we create this sameness where we do the same thing over and we get comfortable with it. And when we're pulled out of that environment, we're not okay. Mm-hmm. And so we try to stay in that environment as much as possible. And then we get a new boss, or our car breaks down, or our kid gets sick, or whatever happens. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the experience of knowing ourselves in struggle to be able to then use that struggle to develop resiliency. Mm-hmm. And when I hear you talk about that type of sermon, I think like, yeah, when we have someone who's suffered profoundly, we want to show them sweetness. Mm-hmm. And we have someone who's been very comfortable, we need to rock them awake so mm-hmm. they can live too. Right. And it's like one of those things is seen as, oh, why do I have to be rocked awake? No, it's also so you get to live.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's what's fascinating about all of this is I remember when I was in Kenya and I developed pneumonia while I was there. And so I couldn't do all the stuff I'd planned to do. However, it is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So I just decided, you know what? I did a bunch of journaling and emotional clearing. And so my body's got to release too. It's just natural that the body will then release. And so I just had a blast. I got to know the person cleaning my room, and I got to know the girl at the front desk who gave me her cell phone so I could connect with her if I needed anything. And my drivers who came and picked me up after 4 days going, you need to leave your room at least for a few minutes. We'll take you to the store for juice and bring you back. Like, I was treated so well by the people of Kenya. It's like it was a completely different trip than I had planned, but it was way better. It was way, I love
Mm-hmm. And you had a choice, right? To see it that way and to feel it that way. And like Erikka said, let me just sit with this. Let me just feel this. And you did it in such a beautiful way that it was a beautiful experience. And so I think that's what's important here as well, is recognizing that, when we fight something or we disagree with it or we resist it, we know that what we resist persists. And that then becomes the opposite of the experience that we really want to have.
Yeah.
And so if we can feel those things, and if we can be in those moments and recognize them for what they are, recognize whatever it is, the gift in them. And I know that's hard when we're in the midst of it, because I've been there a number of times, but what I've learned is that, all the SH1T becomes fertilizer. Right?
I'm 100% team fertilizer, okay?
We need fertilizer to grow beautiful flowers. So
Yeah,
Exactly,
grow as many flowers
right?
as we can, okay? We got a limited amount of time to experience flowers, okay? It's not that long.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love about, what you've learned to get over the anxiety of dying, which has enabled you to live, right? To live in a way that is more authentic and true to who you are.
Yeah, and I mean, I also have the freedom as I learn more things about myself to change and grow. And I feel like that in itself is a big freedom too.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people who are like, I'm a nurse. And it's not because I love nursing, it's because this is the job I have.
Right.
And I'm, okay, but you could choose a different thing. And they're like,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, but if you're unhappy, why not choose again, right? And people sometimes are like,
Yeah.
how would that even work?
Yeah.
And so I think that your story from Kenya, for me, there's this quote by Viktor Frankl, who's a psychotherapist. And he says, between stimulus and response is where our freedom lies. In that moment is where we have the freedom to choose what meaning we associate with what's happening to us. And the thing is, a lot of times we have kind of pre-organized, I think, things into good or bad, right? My mom died, bad. I got a new job, good. I got a new job in a different city, good and bad, right? Like, and we're just like, we're emotionally attached to these things. And the answer is, we don't know. Maybe it's actually a good thing for you overall. I have no idea. But the thing is, I know that if you feel like it's a bad idea, and it's definitely been something bad that's happened to you, you definitely aren't going to have a good day about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that I've strived to do is, for the longest time, I'd always talk about how hard things were. And one day I went, okay, so language impacts how I feel. So what if I change that for another 4-letter word? Instead of hard, maybe it's easy. What if I just say everything's easy? Then what happens? And it's fascinating how that changes the energy around everything.
Yeah.
Just by calling it easy, all of a sudden it's, okay, well, I could do it. I might not know how at this moment, but the way it'll be made clear. And it's all of a sudden it changes the dynamic because we've named it something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're easy, I call new. I'll go,
Yeah.
it's not hard, it's just new, and I don't totally understand it yet. I don't have enough information to panic, is what I say. I don't have enough information to panic. It's just new. I need more details. I could take those details at a rapid pace in this moment. Thank you.
I don't have enough information to panic just yet.
That's perfect. I love it. I love it.
Oh
Because
my
it is
God.
our thinking that throws us under the bus. It's not what's going on, it's how we think about it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think we can build capacity for discomfort. And I think I typically don't use the word.
Should
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
We,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
think that we have a great opportunity to have deeper experiences if we say, okay, listen, I'm going to try to be uncomfortable a bit every day. I'm going to seek it out. It's not going to find me because I'm going to find it.
Mhm.
There's power in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the power, the empowerment of being able to do those things and then go, well, that wasn't so hard, or I made it and I'm better for it. And so it really is it really does build self-esteem, empowerment, ways to handle things in the future differently, how we see things. One of the things that I do for myself and I love watching these geographical, archaeological kind of movies. Greg Braden is one of my favorite, going back and looking at how old things really are, not what we've been told they are, but what they're finding now today is that, like the Sphinx is probably a lot older than what they've said, and other things. And then I think to myself, wow, we are just a blip, not even a dot on the radar screen, right? I mean, that's really what helps me, I think, put things in perspective, or not take things as seriously, is when I think about that, when I think about the dot on the radar screen, that we may not even be seen, we're so small, if we think about time in that way. And so, what's important is really how we make people feel around us, how we make ourselves feel, the things that we do. And I mean, I look at you, Erikka, and I think, wow, you are doing it. You're listening to yourself. And a lot of us get off that track because of the expectations, the conditioning, the whatever the reason is. And then I think, this is just me personally, I mean, there's a fear, first of all, because what happens is then you become that cog in the wheel, right? You have a mortgage, you have this, you have that, so yeah, it's all very well. I can change from being a nurse, but how? How do I do that? I have a mortgage to pay. I have kids to feed. I have a car I'm paying off. So we just get sucked into the system, right? And until we can realize that and choose not to be, you're right, choose to not be drawn in, whatever way, not having a mortgage, whatever it is. But those are difficult choices. And once we're in, it's like it's like being in, I'm thinking of a lake that's drying up and now it's sort of sticky mud,
Yes.
right? You're not sinking, but you're sort of, it's hard to get out of that position.
I really feel what you're talking about. I think that that's the major challenge for a lot of people that keeps people feeling complacent is like, where do I start?
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, there's a lot of different pressures. Like, yes, of course, there's like, I mean, at least for me, I meet a lot of women and a lot of women who are older than me. And the reality is and a lot of women who are younger than me too, who had different choices available to them. when they were in my age. And it wasn't because they didn't, it's because everything wasn't available to them. And neither was really the freedom to understand oneself, right? Because there were a lot of things to do. I think about my mom was really busy. She had 4 kids. Like from the time she was in her early 20s, she didn't have 20 years to go around the world and just discover herself. And another thing that was a tough thing for me, that was a thing that gave me a different circumstance later that was positive, was that, I mean, I lost my mom when I was young. So I had exposure to death early, but a lot of the peers that I have at my age, they have children and parents that they need to care for. And I don't have those things, right? And so for me, I have a different lens on it. I think, to speak to your question about where can someone start if they really feel overloaded, for me, there's a really clear answer, but I'm curious to know if this resonates with either of you. But I would say to start by needing less.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when I was younger, you see something nice, an ornament or something, and you think, oh, that will look so nice in that spot, right? Now I see something, I'm like, oh, it's a dust collector. I need to get rid of stuff. Never mind buy anything.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, when
So
we moved last summer, we got rid of everything because we downsized so much. And I'll tell you, what a freedom in that.
yeah, and
Feel
it
it when
is.
we let go of some of those things, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about needing less. It's about recognizing. And I think, you know, for a lot of us, we get caught in this whole consumerism cycle. It's also a cycle. It's like something we get drawn into. But I think for many people, it becomes a way of soothing themselves,
Yeah.
100%.
right?
It's designed like that. It is, shopping, consumerism is designed to hit your dopamine centers to make you feel that, so it keeps going.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I work hard, so I deserve this. Or, you know, whatever, you know, it makes me feel better. I'm feeling down, so I'm going to go and buy a nice blouse or a dress or pants or whatever, because it makes me feel better in that moment, right?
Until the
And
visa
so,
bill comes in.
yeah, exactly. But again, it's sucked into the system, right?
Yes.
And so it's needing to recognize that we don't have to be, we don't need to be sucked in. We can actually choose differently.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can feel bad and say, you know what? I feel really low. I'd like to meditate on the roof. We have a rooftop here. Or I feel low. I'm going to call to see if someone will go on a walk with a tea, you know? And both of those things are relatively cheap. But
And
they have
beautiful.
similar effect. Yeah. And you get to see the sunset, or you get to see the trees or whatever. But
Right.
it's like, when we think about consumerism too, when I consider that human beings are social creatures that want connection and purpose and meaning, shopping doesn't really give you that, even though in our society we're really pushed towards it. It's a solitary activity, even if we're buying things for other people that we think they need, or that we need to get them, or that we need, or whatever. We're still, it's really like, still kind of impersonal a little bit, right? It's like you and your bank card.
It is. It's an obligation. It makes me think of Sheldon. Do you watch The Big Bang Theory?
I don't.
I think Penny gave him a present one day, and he said, "Oh no, now you've given me an obligation."
Okay, he's me. Her, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel. I'm like, please don't give me anything I need to have, because the reality is I usually travel with a backpack and I have no ability to remember it, and then I have to remember it. And
Yeah.
the world is
Yeah.
a big place.
Yeah, that's
It sort of
beautiful.
eliminates your freedom when you have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you're wanting to experience freedom, like you've traveled to 29 different countries.
And I
You
sew
don't
my
do that with a lot of stuff.
no. I still sew my socks. which is something that other people don't do, I've discovered, because every time I mention it to people, they're just like, why don't you buy new ones? The answer is because, to be honest, I'm lazy, and I've been doing it for long enough that it's sort of my thing. But it's a bit of a commitment to myself that, like, you know, socks are this silly thing. They cost like 50 cents or $1 or whatever, you know. And we don't repair things, right? We just get the new thing because it's easier. And so when I started repairing things in my life, it was a bit of a decision overall to use jars instead of bottles and to sew my socks instead of buying new ones. And I know some people think that's kind of the hippie mentality, but it's
No.
given me benefits. It gives me the money to buy plane tickets. And it means I'm not just constantly throwing things away and needing new things. So I don't have it. It's rare that I need to go to a store that's not the grocery store if I don't have a problem.
And that's great, because then you become less dependent as well, right? On
It's
the
less of a hassle.
outside. You're more independent.
Yeah. And if,
And
yeah,
you're
I think
doing good for the environment.
Absolutely huge, right? And not getting into that wheel of consumerism.
trying to avoid it. I mean, I'm still programmed like everybody else, right? I grew up in Canada, which is a place that I feel like is really, really bound by capitalism in a big way. And I think
North
that,
America, very much so.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. And so while I can like have gratitude for the place I'm in now, I have a lot of respect for when I meet people and they're really in that mentality, like, I know where that comes from. I have been in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's
And
great, because it gives you a much broader perspective.
Yeah.
And I think religion has done us a disservice when it comes to death and dying as well, in some cases where there's a belief in heaven and hell. I remember when my mother-in-law was dying, the fear that she had that she was going to go to hell it was just awful to see that in someone. And there's so many people who go through that. And I don't know if you noticed that when you were in the working with palliative cases, but it's like the idea that, I'm holding on and holding on because I'm afraid of what's on the other side.
There's so much of that. And I really feel for that, because that comes from a genuine place of not having, this is my opinion, but I feel like that comes from a genuine place of not feeling agency within yourself that you can handle whatever's coming. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, something is coming. That because I don't think death is an ending. I think it's just it's just a transition to another way of being. So
And but the thing is, when we see change, can we see it with wonder instead of fear? And I
yes,
think
I
that's what
love
you're
that.
talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I love that word, wonder.
Too.
It's sort of an open word, right? Like if I'm in a place of wonder, I'm available.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think too, it's like, when I think about wonder, I think about, I don't know, for me, I look at everything that's man-made and I think, look at all this nature. Like, for me, nature is this amazing thing, and just being able to be a part of that, I think is this connection that is so easy to miss. But it allows you to really say, like you had mentioned, Cheryl, I don't have to put all this pressure on myself. I don't have to be this special, unique influencer. I can just be a regular person. And the ordinariness of being a regular person is where freedom comes from. And I believe that, you know, ordinary people are kind of the only people that sort of do extraordinary things because they don't have the problems of big fancy
Yeah.
people. They're just regular people. They have time to learn and go to school and just like think about how to be better. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You have
Absolutely.
delight in your ordinariness. Use it to enjoy your life and have fun and really exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
Do
fun.
what feeds your soul
Yeah.
and have fun doing it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I realized that a few months ago when I wasn't doing anything for pleasure. I worked all the time. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what would pleasure look like?
Mm-hmm.
So I started learning how to play piano because that would give me pleasure.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can I do to bring pleasure to my life? And we all have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And we should.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you started playing piano, did you notice any change in your own perception of wonder in other parts of your life? I guess is my question.
Absolutely. And it's like when I was in Kenya, I started playing piano in October, but going to Kenya in February or the end of January, it was like being sick was just another opportunity to simply be with what was, whatever that looks like. And then from there, even we were doing some ceremony around the full moon. And I went to put my offering in the lake and I fell into the icy water of Lake Ontario.
Of course, yes.
And all I thought at the time was, well, I guess the ancestors wanted all of me, so here I am. It was minus 10 degrees that day, and I was soaked right through to my underwear. So I'm walking back to my car, my parka's dripping, my shoes are full of water. And I'm like,
I only laugh because those are the moments where I'm like, thanks for the gifts.
exactly. Yeah, I felt very blessed. I had such a laugh about it. My husband, when he came to the door, was like, what did you do? I went swimming.
Barbara Jean, I really think there's such this like beautiful piece of that. And the piece that sticks out to me is like, you could have had a properly irritated day about it.
I could have.
You could have been properly, people would have understood, right?
Yep, they would have.
But you would have burned a whole day.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's such a great story to laugh at.
Exactly. But you have to be in that mentality of availability or wonder in order to feel those things. And I guess for me, I look at it and I'm like, how do we bring more people here where there's jokes and sandwiches and it's nice and we can just say, okay, I don't know how this is going to go, but like, however it goes, I don't control that. So I'll just be happy about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Not enough information to panic yet.
Yeah.
I love it. We're down to our last 2 minutes, believe it or not. So, Erikka, one thing you'd like people to take away from this conversation? What's their takeaway?
Don't be scared of yourself. Just ask yourself questions and just get a little bit uncomfortable, and you'll be so happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
True, it's true. What about you, Cheryl?
Yeah, I think on the same lines, get to know yourself a little better and don't be afraid of living.
Yeah. Live like live today like this is the only moment you have.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, it really is the only moment. Now is the only point in time. So we may as well live it and have fun. Erikka, thank you.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, Erikka. Thank you so much.
Great conversation. We're going to have you back in the future. Let me know when you're back in Canada because
I will.
I would love to have coffee with you. Let's just know that Spirit Cafe is doing well.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you both have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. You too. Enjoy the festivities.
And have a good sleep tonight because it's already nighttime where you are.
I know. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for watching Spirit Cafe on the New Thought Media Network. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you all again next week when we're back with Reverend Dina from MCC Toronto. It's going to be a fabulous conversation. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.